Robin. We have Robin White, who is a barrister who specialises in employment and discrimination law. Robin, welcome. Sorry about that. It was a glitch on my system.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. So, Robin, what's your reaction to this announcement from the government and the Equality and Human Rights Commission?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say, I think some of the reporting is incorrect because, firstly, the Equality and Human Rights Commission haven't recommended any particular movement. What they've said is exactly as you ended, that the area is complex and difficult and there needs to be more policy work. But I'm afraid to say the proposed changes don't just have small amounts of difficulties. If we turn on its head, the way in which the Equality Act has worked now for more than a decade, and of course the Equality Act brought together bits of other legislation that have been around much longer, we get into a load of nonsenses. Now, you've set out some of them, that, for example, if we're going to use, quotes, biological sex as a marker, we end up with trans men on female wards in hospitals and vice versa. And that's just bonkers. Equally, how are we testing biological sex? So are we going to have genital inspection or chromosomal inspection when people want to use facilities? And if we come to discrimination, if someone says, well, I just didn't know the person's biological sex, then they can avoid a discrimination claim entirely. So we don't use biological sex as the marker at the moment. The law is very clear. There was a judgment by Lady Haldane in Scotland recently that said, no, it is not biological sex in the Equality Act. And if actually we want practical protection for people against discrimination, then this is a crazy route to go down.
And I mean, Robin, I suppose part of this is there's lots of there's raw politics as part of this, and I think that's a fair comment to make. But also there have been some cases, for example, the case of Isla Bryson, for example, where people were very, very upset about that. And do you think this is a move that people want to absolutely clarify the fact that in some spaces
with Isla Bryson is that they, however we refer to Isla Bryson, didn't end up in a female prison. So
she was on a female estate. She was in an isolation, but she was in a female estate
for a brief period of assessment, and then assessed and moved to the male estate, and was in isolation while being assessed. So let's not say that Isla Bryson was plonked into a female prison without some care.
Yeah, but she was on an estate. She was factually, she was on an estate when that is a fact. Yeah. But Robert, just because we've got about a minute left on this, it looks like the Labour Party is not pushing back against this. What are you going to do?
No, I'm sorry. I've looked carefully at the statements, and the statements actually made, and then the things said around them. And to say that biological sex is important, yes, of course it is. But if we're going to recognise the rights and freedoms, particularly of trans individuals, then we recognise that it's a more complex question. It's not an easy thing just to say, biological sex and nothing else, which is where we were back in the 1960s. And do we really want to go back to the 1960s?
Well, Robin, we'll have to leave it there. But thanks very much for your time. That's Robin White, who is a barrister